guys, it's Robin, RsIslandCrafts, and welcome to my craft room. Today, I'm going to be making some pocket tissue covers. You know, these little things that we throw in our purse or in our backpack, and after we start pulling out tissues, they get all crumpled up, and whatever happens to be in our purse or backpack ends up getting in there. You might get a pen in there, you get some cookie crumbles if you happen to stick a cookie in your purse or whatever. They always just tend to get nasty and they fall apart. So I'm going to make some covers for ours. Right now in Florida, we are hitting right in the middle of smack dab allergy season. So everyone's either all stuffed up or they got runny, sneezy noses. Or lately, you can have a bit of both. So I already made one for Rob to keep over by his side of the table so he can have his tissues. And I'm going to be making one for my purse. This is the fabric I'm using for mine. And as some of you could probably already guess, I made a Giants one for Rob. Now I have seen these tissues in other people's videos that live over in England and stuff, so there are different types and different brands that you can get there. I just got a basic Kleenex one. It came in a pack of I think 6 or 8 from Walmart for just a few dollars. They all have the little sayings on the front: seize the moment, summon your strength, believe in yourself. I think that's kind of cool, but it opens up on the back. And now for these, when they open up, you just pull this little tab so you can pull your tissues out just like a tissue box, and then it goes and it does close back down. But you know over time that sticker is going to get some type of dust or gunk in it, and it's not going to stick anymore, so you won't be able to reclose it. And because we are using it, the center one right here, you're going to want to have the ones that open in the center like this. Some of them open up at the top. Now if you do have one of those, you can still use it. All I suggest is either at the top here, wherever it's cut, or on the other side, just take your scissors and cut a little slit down the front of it. Some of them you have to actually physically open up, that they don't have these little quick pop-ups anyway. So once again, you just take your scissors, take a little X-Acto knife, and just make a slice down there. Now that's if you want to keep your plastic wrapper on inside your pouch. I kind of like it in there. It holds the tissues all together and it makes it a lot easier to get in and out. But if you want, you can go ahead and just remove this outer wrapper completely and just put your tissues in there. We won't be doing any actual sewing today, but I do have all the little steps set up for us so that we can go through them. So far I have come across 2 different ways to make them. This way is an actual flat one. The pouch is nice and flat, quick and easy. But this one, I went ahead and boxed the corners, so I made it more into the shape of the tissues. And I thought this was really nice. There are some extra steps to that. This video, I'm going to be doing just the flat one. But if you're interested in this more of a cubed box one, you can head over to my Patreon page. And any of my patrons that are at the 9 patch or above level, you'll be able to find this video there. It should be there on Saturday. If not, it'll definitely be there sometime this weekend. I think I kind of prefer the one that actually makes it look nice and cubed like this. I like the way it just has that nice shape to it. I like the crisp corners and stuff like that. But Rob, he prefers his just in the old-fashioned way. And they both work just as well. It just comes down to what you prefer. Now right now it still looks pretty similar. It has that nice shape to it still, but as your tissues go down, it's going to get flatter. And when this one, as the tissues go down, you'll still have that basic shape. Who knows what's going to happen once you put it in your purse, right? So as I said, it's all personal preference. So let's get started. What you're going to need is you're going to need a lining fabric and an outer fabric. And as you can see, the lining fabric is bigger than the outer fabric. And the lining fabric is what's going to come across here as the contrast. I like that little contrast feature. Once, of course, it makes it easier to find where it is, and it's just nice to have that little detail. I'm going to put the measurements down below. So your outer fabric is going to measure 6 inches by 7 inches. So I have this fun animal print. And then your lining fabric is the larger one. It's going to be 6 inches by 8.5 inches. So it all depends on what you want, but it's nice to have a contrast against the 2 fabrics. But if you wanted to just stick with something that kind of goes with it, you just want to use a blue for this one or something, that is perfectly fine too. It's your pocket tissue pouch. You can make it any way you want. I watched a few different tutorials, and like I usually do, I just took a little bit from here and there, and then I just ran with it and worked it the way that it worked for me in my project. So some of them, they just used one piece of fabric, and then they didn't have any liner at all. So I didn't use that one. You need a bigger size fabric so you can fold over pieces and everything like this, because you still need to have this folded. When this works out, it kind of reminds me of those pillows, the fold over pillows where you can just pop your pillow in, and then on the back of it, it folds over and has a little slit there for you to get your pillow insert in and out. There were some that they used quilting. They put batting in it and then they quilted the outer fabric. And then there's other ones that use some type of an interfacing to make it just a little bit firmer. But what I was thinking is these are really good for just gifts. If you have something on hand, like around Christmas time, if you're one of those people that have a variety of people that just pop into your house and stop by to visit, you can have a bowl of these with Christmas fabric or just regular fabric. And when your guests come over, you can always send them home with the tissue holder. Whether you put tissue in it or just give them the holder, totally up to you. Or when you're having those office parties, the birthdays or the Christmas parties, and you have to give gifts to people that you really don't know that well, or the spending limit is really small, you can always make them this. You can give them with a gift card, or you can just make this a gift, or maybe make a keychain with them, or just a regular Christmas card, or some candy or something. So it's a nice little handmade gift. It's not going to take you very long. It only takes a few minutes to make these. And you're still giving something meaningful that you made to people that you don't know very well. I've seen some teachers, they like to have them for all their students, and students can keep these at their desks, and then the parents can just keep refilling with the little pocket tissues. So that's a nice way for them to have tissues available to them without having a big box. It does make a really great teacher's gift too. So there's a variety of things you can do with these. They're very inexpensive to make, and they're very quick. So that's why I'm just making mine plain. I'm not adding any batting or interfacing or anything like that. And I think just to have the two fabrics with it being lined makes it sturdy enough that you don't have to worry. Now, if your lining fabric is also a print, when we do our next step, you want to make sure that you're going to put right sides together. Mine is just a solid, so it's black. It looks the same on both ways, so I don't have to worry about it. What we're going to do first is we are going to line up one edge. These are the 6-inch edges, so it doesn't matter left or right. We're going to line up both of them. You can take some pins or some of the little clover clips. When I'm doing this, the cotton seems to hold itself very well. I just run it through the machine without any clips. If it comes over the edge just a little bit, then you don't have to worry about it. This is just a tissue holder. It'll be fine. So you spin it around, then you're going to go ahead and line up the next two edges. And you notice when you flip it over that we have this extra, see how we have that extra curly bit there of fabric? That's okay. We're just going to keep it out of the way, and we're going to run this through our sewing machine, and we're going to run a 1/4-inch seam down both sides. I have one here. The white is going to be my lining fabric, and I have this fun purple swirl for my outer, and as you can see, I have all this extra fabric here. 1/4-inch seams down the side. Now our next step will be to flip this right side out. And what I like to do is I just finger press. I like to lay the outer fabric a little bit here, and I just take my fingers and I roll them up and I press this seam right here. I want to press it towards my lining. You can hit it with an iron if you want. A lot of times when I was using my iron, I would accidentally press a seam into over there or fold into it, and I didn't want to do that, so just finger pressing it worked fine. Now, I've got myself set up to make about 50 of these right now because once I do production, I do a lot, and I thought they would be a great reward for some of my patrons in one of their gift packs when I do their rewards and stuff. I thought a little tissue pouch would be a really nice reward. So when I was going through them, I was really fussing with them, and I was trying to make sure that I got everything here all lined up nice and neat and ready to go. But what I found is, if I just, after I finger press it, if I just laid it, and I just kind of start scrunching this down a little bit, and I take my fingernails, and I just push against these, that it will roll right over and lay down flat. These are basically, it's just your seam allowances right in there. So each side is just about 1/4 inch. I don't go crazy and measure it. Like this one, it looks a little narrower down there. So probably when I was sewing it or when I pressed it over, it got a little bit off. But when you're making these, you're only going to see the top one. You don't really see the bottom one anyways. And most of the things down at the end, they're getting stitched in. So once again, you're not going to see it. This is a great project if you want to teach some kids how to sew, or if it's someone who's new to sewing. It's a small project, not very complicated, and when they're done, after, maybe it might take them an hour as you're teaching them, when they're done, they have an actual project to go home with. Could be a little bit harder to start using a sewing machine and you want to go right into making a quilt. This way they can get used to the sewing machine and learn a bit along the way. So I have this all nice and even. It's laying flat. I go ahead and I press this with my iron. Y'all know I'm all about the steam, so I go ahead and I got these corners, these side edges here. I steam them down nicely. And then with your main fabric, your outer fabric shining up at you, I just match up these sides. You can give it just a little finger press. You can just gently press it with your iron. I wouldn't steam it, and I wouldn't make a hard crease with that, because that's going to be at the bottom of our pouch right here, and we don't need to have a big crease right there. Now once we know where our center seam is, we're going to open this back up, and once again with our outer fabric facing up, we're going to be folding these over, and this is what's going to make the little opening right here for us. Now you have a few options. You can line this up exactly with the center seam so that you have one piece on each side of it. Go ahead and put a pin or one of these clippies in. And then you're going to turn it around and do the exact same thing. Make sure you're lining up with your center seam, butting them together, and pop on a clippy. I did try it this way, but this was not my favorite way. When I was stitching this one, I had a hard time actually getting it to stay together, so I did have a little bit of a gap. Now, if you're better at holding it together than me, you can go ahead and give it a try. And then when I popped them back out, I ended up with it having a wide opening, and then you can see down into here. And I didn't really quite like that. So I'm going to go ahead and take this one apart, and I'm going to redo it so that they have a little bit of an overlap. The next thing I did is I went and overlapped, where's my center? Here's my center. I took this whole seam allowance and I overlapped 1/4 inch past, using this seam allowance here as my guide. And then I took this one and I just put it right on top, and then I pinned it. And that worked out perfectly fine. That's how I made these. No problems at all. But what I did notice is as you're going through this with your machine, you've got all these seam allowances all together, and you're going to go clunk, clunk, clunk with your machine. So then I made this sample. And once again, I went 1/4 inch over past the center line on this side. And then I took this one and I went 1/4 inch past the center in the opposite direction so that my seam allowances will nest in there. You can kind of feel it together. And then I go ahead and clippy it. And then make sure whichever one's on the bottom, you're doing the same thing. So you're going to go past it this way, and then this one's going to lay on top and go past it that way. And then I gave it a clip. So now when I'm stitching across the ends, I do have the thickness here, but I don't have it all double seam allowanced. So when I went through here, I could just hear my machine going clunk clunk a little bit over it because it is so thick to be going through, and I probably need to put a new needle in, which I will be doing once I finish these all up. So once you sew across it, you don't have all that thickness. So maybe your machine doesn't like to go through a lot of thick seams like that. This is a nice way to do it. And as I said, it goes like this, and it just keeps that extra bit tucked under. So you don't have any of this popping through like that. It stays nice and hidden. Of course, I can pull it out to be seen. but it's a whole 1/4 inch. The next one doesn't start until here. So I like the way that was a nice secret little hiding in there. So you can use more pins than I do, and you can have this one that's actually open like that, that's easy to get through. That might be good for small children. If you stack them on top of each other, they'll be right there. And once again, it's still easy to get to, but you do have that extra thickness that you're going through. Or if you want to just go ahead and cross them over so that you only have to go through the one thickness and they won't be going through double. And it's still not hard to pull out. And I like this one too because it seems like it would keep everything more protected in there, and then maybe less crumbs and gunk could get inside my package. And as you can hear, as I said, I like to keep the plastic on it when I put them in there. Okay, so now once we make those decisions, we need to take this to the sewing machine, and we need to use a 3/8 inch seam to go down here. Now don't worry about trying to make sure it's perfect. A lot of the sewing machines will have a 3/8 on it. What I suggest is you just go bigger than a 1/4 inch. You know, a couple little threads past a 1/4 inch. With my sewing machine, I have to press a button to get it to go to the 1/4 inch mark, and it moves my needle over so I can use the side of my presser foot and my needle is closer to it. When I first turn my sewing machine on, my needle is in the center of my foot. So I just go ahead and line this up with the side of my presser foot. I leave my needle in the center, and I go ahead and I just stitch down. Now as you can see, I'm using white thread for any of my white linings. I used a red thread for my red bags. And when I sew my black, I'm going to use a black one. So I found it's really nice to match the color of your thread to your lining. When we stitch our bags and stuff, there is going to be an exposed seam. Now I haven't gone and finished this one off yet. But as you can see, I just stitched down it, and I have this whole seam here exposed that I will be taking care of with some red thread. Because I used white on white, it's going to be a little bit hard. There you go. There's your overcast stitch. And my sewing machine, it has this special foot with a ledge-like type thing in it, and it just go ahead and it wraps around like this, and it just evens that all up nice. It's going to stop this from fraying. I do like to shorten my distance here, my length, and I like to make my width as far as it'll go over. And for me, I'm using, I believe it was a standard of 4.5 on the width, and I moved it up to 5, which is as wide as it'll go. And it started out at 2.3 for the width here, the length here. Width, either way, you know what I mean. It was 2.3 and I dropped it down to 1.5. I go ahead and test it out on a scrap piece of fabric first to see how I like it, to make sure it's going to be the right size for me. I made several of these without pinking these, and I noticed that it frayed more naturally and it just kept fraying. But when I went through and I pinked them and then overcast them, it seems to hold all that fraying in pretty good. Then while I have it in my hand, I have these little squeezing scissors like. I found that these were easy to go ahead and trim all these little threads up and anything that might be sticking out. You know, when you get little pieces little threads that might be sticking out this way. Or you can still take, if you don't have those, you can use your scissors. Maybe if you have a smaller pair of scissors, it'd be good. But I found that these were just a little bit more work. And it was nice just to have these in my hand, and it made it go a lot quicker when I'm doing so many of them. And it just snips it like that. And that's pretty much it. You just turn them right side out. Take my trusty little crochet hook and I pop those corners out. There you go, a quick and easy pouch. You can go ahead and hit this with the iron if you want. This was one of the pouches when I was still putting them together and not offsetting them, so you can see how the little extra contrast white pops out there. But if it bothers you and you've already sewn them, you can go ahead and just fold it over a little bit and then hit it with your iron, and they'll be nice and flat, and you can put them in little sandwich snack baggies or something if you want to keep them all clean, and then you can put them in a bowl like that. It's nice to have a gift basket ahead of time. If you start making these now, You can make a bunch of them and have them ready for Christmas time. If you want to hand them out to, some people like to hand them out to the homeless with the tissues in it. They're good to hand out at church. If you have a sick friend, it's nice to make them a little basket, put some tissues in it, give them a nice little holder. So while they're suffering with their cold, flu, or allergies, they'll have a nice little case to look at. I have been a little busy. I do have several that I've been working on. I have a whole stack of white ones and then a whole stack of black ones that I'm going to be stitching up. You'll be seeing these hopefully on Whip It Wednesday. Either some of them this week and some next week, or I might get them all done this week. They're really quick if you're only making one. It only takes just a few minutes to do them. I would say on your first one, maybe it might take you half an hour, but after that, I think 15 minutes from start to finish, from cutting the fabric to stitching it all the way through until you're finished. They don't take very long at all. And they're real simple to get your tissues in. I've seen people try to go in and put it in this way and then like pull this over and try to struggle. But if you just do it like we do the couch pillows, the envelope style, you just slide that in. And you can just pop it down with your thumb and pull this over. And it's a nice little crinkly gift that you can give somebody. You put some eyes on it and you can have it. Oh, look, he's got little eyes there, so he's now a monster. Rawr. Don't forget, patrons, you head on over to the site this weekend and it should be popping up Saturday. I believe everyone gets an email notification or some form of a notification if you signed up for it whenever I put up something new. So some of you might not know what Patreon is. Patreon is a website. It's a community-based website where you can support your favorite artists or creators, musicians, anyone that has some form of an art. And we know art encompasses a lot of different materials and crafts and stuff. Now, some people just offer things for free, and some people offer for things at paid levels. And what it is you can make a contribution to your artist each month. And each artist in each community is different. You set up tiers so that when your patron pays a certain amount each month, they will get a certain reward. Whether they're getting something tangible, like when I send out fabric postcards or these tissue pouches, or they're just getting bonus videos or live feeds or whatever that artist has determined. I have a little bit of a mixture of everything in there, I think. So each month on the 1st or between the 1st and the 5th, Patreon will automatically take the money out of whatever account you did. If you put it on a charge card or if you use PayPal. And then based on the tier you're joined on, and as I said, it's different for every artist, but I have all my tiers set up on the side and you can choose which one you want. You'll be able to see the rewards you're going to get. So those in the 9 patch and above will see this video on Saturday or Sunday. And I'll explain and go through the whole process of how to do the corners and everything like that. And then also throughout the month, you'll see different videos. I randomly put up blog posts with pictures or just conversations. I do polls. I just chit chat with people. I message back and forth, or we can talk right on the timeline. It has a similar feel to Facebook, but not so confusing. You're just going to be looking at what I post. So each month you can choose. You can stay at the tier you're at, or you can go up to a higher tier or down to a lower tier. So no matter when you join, you're going to see whatever you see now, but you can also see anything that I've put up in the past. Patreon makes it really easy for you to come and go as you please, to change tiers based on rewards or what you might want to see. If you want to try a higher tier, you can test that out for a month or two and decide if it's for you. And if not, you can go ahead and drop down to a lower tier. You can pause your account and not contribute anything for a month, 3 months, or a year, and then you can come back and start up again. I always have a link down below in any of my newer videos to my Patreon page. If you guys have any questions, just go ahead and message me at my email, which is also down below, RsIslandCrafts@gmail.com, or just ask in the comments. So I hope you guys had fun making these little pouches with me today. It's really great to find different fabrics. You don't need very much because the biggest piece is the 8.5 by 6, and that's the liner. So if you have any type of fun little novelty or little bits left over from a quilt, maybe when you trim the edge of your quilt, you can go ahead and whip out a bunch of these really quick. We're almost halfway through April. This year is flying by. So it's not going to be very long before we're going to really have to start thinking about making gifts for Christmas. And if we get ourselves a little gift basket and start making some ahead now, we won't have that stress later. And we can just kick back and relax and hang out here on YouTube and watch videos while other people are stressing out trying to get all their gifts done. I've been doing these, I think I have 54 that I'm making because, yeah, I just kept cutting out fabric. I just cut it with a fabric off the top of the yardage and stuff, and I would just make 3 or 6 out of it depending on how the fabric was going and how I was able to cut it and stuff. As you can see, I did not use any directional fabric because I didn't want to have to think about how to turn the fabric to cut it and all that. So I skipped any of the directional fabric, even though it would be fun. Plus it's going to be on the back, and I don't know, I tend to see most of the front, so the directional just didn't work for me. Got close to lining these guys up though, although I chopped their legs off. So these are really easy to make out of scraps, and as I said, I make them one after another. I go ahead and chain piece them. I just make a bunch, and I just keep stitching them, and I don't take them apart, and I just let them all go through the machine. I'll do 15 or 20 of them at a time, and then we're done. I'll spin them around, and I'll stitch the next side. And they go really quick that way. That's why I don't know exactly how long one takes to make, but I think it'd probably be only about 15 minutes. Thanks for hanging out with me today in my craft room, and I hope you found a nice idea. Thanks for hanging out with me today in my craft room. I hope you enjoyed this little video. Thanks for hanging out with me today in the craft room. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and like it. And if you haven't already, subscribe, and then you can see more of the videos that are coming up. Every Friday I do a Sew With Me, where I either do a small quick tutorial like this, or I do some type of a quilt series. And if you want YouTube to notify you every time I do put up a video, go ahead and ring that little bell, because I also have a Talk to Me Tuesday video where I show a little quilting on Tuesdays, and my Whip It Wednesday where I show you all the craft projects that I've been working on this week. And this week's Whip It Wednesday coming up is going to be a doozy, because I've got a lot of these pocket tissue holders to show you. Patrons, I will see you over on Patreon on Saturday or Sunday for the boxy tutorial. And to everyone else, I'll see you next week. Have a great weekend, guys. Bye.